Hello and welcome to the Bee Formless Flow-Driven CEO podcast. I am thrilled to have with me Jeff Sesol today from Chicago, where it's Wednesday afternoon. It's always interesting when I'm saying it's Wednesday afternoon. It's bright and early here Thursday morning. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I always feel like you're in the future for me. That's kind of a funny thing. We just had something that we did from what's another near Melbourne, right? So
Sydney.
somewhere over there. Oh, yeah, something like that. Yeah, but it was crazy because it was just like, wow, that is so weird to me. We're halfway around the world. It's just
Yeah,
bizarre. But well, I'm
I
glad I'm
know.
able to do this.
It's a good one. I've been, someone mentioned it ages ago and I kind of borrowed it. And it's like you're in the past, I'm the future, but right now we're in the present because we're right here together. So
Yeah,
I love that. And given that you are an executive coach, an entrepreneur, and host of Pull the Shoot podcast, which you said to me we've had now for 4 years, and you're just about up to your 200th episode, which is amazing. Presence is really important when it comes to what we're doing because when we're helping leaders grow like you're doing, and your company grows people first, I think presence is a big part of that, right? And I'd love to talk to you a bit about that also. You've built and
sure.
exited multiple ventures, two in particular called Free Drive and Son Media and now coach teams on trust, momentum, and culture through the firm and obviously through the podcast. It does become a bit like a coaching session. I think is the whole podcasting when you're talking to various CEOs, founders, and leaders. Jeff,
Yeah, it is. It is.
tell us about your journey. Tell us a bit about obviously the multiple ventures and then how you then got into executive coaching, starting this.
Sure, sure. So yeah, I was born and raised in Chicago. Started in the corporate world at Harris Bank. Um, I tried college for a couple of years and I was bored out of my mind because it moved way too slow, to be honest. I'm a self-taught kind of guy, so I taught myself how to program and automated the trust fee department at Harris Bank. And then in '93, I left Harris Bank to start my own entrepreneurial ventures. And it started with a little company called FuturesNet, pre-internet, but it was a network for the futures and options industry. London Financial Futures was on, New York Mercantile Exchange, Chicago Mercantile Exchange, Smith Barney, and they were all communicating on this
Yeah, right.
platform. In 1996, we moved them to the internet, and and then in 1998, we noticed that they were all using one piece of the platform more than any other, which was the ability to upload a file from your web browser to our servers and get to it from any other web browser. So we pulled that out and we called it Free Drive, FREE Drive. And one of my small claim to fame in life is I'm one of the founding fathers of what we know today as web-based storage, because it did not exist back in 1998. And we started it out, and it took us 18 months to get our first million users, but then it only took 13 weeks to get the next million, 11 weeks to get the next million, 10
Wow.
weeks to get the next million. And it was just an insane time. By 2001, we had 18 million users worldwide, and we
Oh,
sold the majority share to Motorola, as a company most people might recognize, a company called EMC, which is a storage company out of Massachusetts, and a company called EDS, which is a server company out of Plano, Texas. For the next 2 years, I had a really cool job. I was the technology evangelist because I was the CTO of the company, and they brought their own people in. But I traveled the country every week looking for technologies that would fit into Free Drive since I designed it, and speaking in front of 5,000 people about why we had been so successful. Love that job. That was so fun. And then in 2003, my time was up. And so I started just consulting for people. First, I was automating their operations, but eventually that just morphed into helping them grow their companies.
mm,
And I learned a lot of things over the years, especially during the free drive years, about how important it is to take care of your people.
mm.
So when we had free drive, it was a lot of programmers, and we were doing stuff no one else had ever done before. So it was a lot of trial and error. And the cool part was we gave the programmers a room where they could just step away for a while. It had overstuffed chairs, overstuffed couches, video games, VCR, a stocked fridge full of beer, a pool table, darts, just whatever they needed to kind of clear their head and then go back at it. And I love to tell the story one time where every quarter we would take our people out again. This is about, appreciating your people.
Yeah.
Every quarter we would take them out and just say, thank you so much for what you've done for us, right? Because they're all busting their butts to make this all work. Because again, it was such a new thing. And every time we did that, we tried to pick somebody out that really had gone above and beyond over the last quarter. And so this one time we go out and I say, how many of you have worked a 40-hour work day for us? And this girl raises her hand and she goes, you mean week? And I go, no, day. She goes, I don't understand what that means. And I said, well, that's when people like Josh and Bunty, our database guys, came in on a Monday one time and didn't leave till Wednesday. Now, I want to clarify a few things. I kept asking them to make sure they go. I had a business partner, Mike Rhodes. So I would work 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. and be home with my kids for dinner. Mike would work noon to 10. So he was at breakfast with his kids. So we kind of split up that way. And so when I left, I'd say, guys, make sure you go home today. Yeah, yeah, we'll go home. We'll go home. And I come in the next morning, there's a note on the door. Wake us at 9. I'm like, you're killing me. What happened? Well, we figured this out. We figured that out. We wanted to keep going. And I said, all right. So I left the next day on Tuesday and I said, please go home. Yep, we're going home. Sure enough, I come in Wednesday, there's a note on the door. Wake us at 9. I go, what are you guys doing? We solved the problem, Jeff. It's just so amazing. We got it working. I'm like, all right, I appreciate that. So by about noon, I walk up. And so the guys' names were Josh and Bunty. Josh was about 6'5", 285 pounds. Bunty was 5'5", and probably 200 pounds.
Oh, how
But I
funny.
walked up to Josh and I, dude, I love you, but you've got to go home. He goes, no, we're almost. I go, look, you haven't showered in 3 days. I love you. Go home. But my point of that story is that they didn't want to leave, right? And I kept asking them, please go home. But because they felt so dedicated, because we showed our appreciation for them.
Yeah, I was
And
about to
if
say.
companies are more willing to do that, people will go the extra mile for you and they'll do whatever it takes to be successful.
Yeah, and that's a
So,
real.
and then, yeah,
Mm. No, sorry, you go.
what I was going to say is so that those lessons I learned. So as we started talking a little bit before the show, and you said save it for the show, but I started a company called Pull the Chute 5 years ago, and Pull the Chute is about a skydive event that I did when I was 40. So if you go skydiving, you go 14,000 feet up in a plane, and you tumble out, and you're falling at 120 miles an hour. And the first thing you notice is that it's hard to breathe. One little movement of your hands, and you're spinning out of control. Everything's happening so fast you can't see where you're at, and you can't see where you're going. But at 5,500 feet, I pulled the chute. Suddenly I could breathe again. I was in control, see where I was at and see where I wanted to go. And isn't that a lot like being in business?
That's so
And so
true.
my whole goal with Pull the Chute is to get business owners to pull the chute once a week for an hour, to take a breath, feel in control, see where they're at and see where they want to go. And I help them to do that.
I love that. Yeah, it's so cool. It's such a cool story. Like listening to all of that, and congratulations, like on your business and free drive. It's
Thank you.
quite an incredible fate, like feat, I should say. It's interesting
Yeah.
hearing your story about Monty, and I can't remember the other guy's name. And it was certainly there were times in my
Bunty and Josh, yeah.
Monty and Josh, but there were certainly times when I was in advertising, and I mentioned to you I was in advertising and communications, and I have the opposite where I remember once we had this massive pitch for a car company called Holden, think like Ford, and the pitch was I think on the Thursday or the Wednesday, I can't remember now, but I was in the office from Monday through till Wednesday, and I went home literally every morning for a shower, but that was it. And it was adrenaline, it was everything, but it wasn't. I loved it, but I was exhausted. Like, and so I think there's a real
Yeah.
difference in terms of the stress, the exhaustion, the chronic stress that leads to burnout versus doing it because you love it. Not that I didn't love it, but do you know what I mean? And having people saying go home, you need to rest. I think it's a very big difference, right? In terms of that, like, and for
Absolutely.
me, that's like full getting into full flow state where you're in it, like you're just everything's effortless, like no distractions, you're solving problems, like. And the good thing is that they were still resting by the sounds of things because I was saying wake us up at 9. So it wasn't like they were working right through, whereas I
Yeah.
was working right through. Tell us when you booked in for the podcast, and then I have a question that I always ask, which is what is one unique insight or lived experience when it comes to life, leadership, and or business? And it obviously coincides with everything we're talking about right now. But you said when in a leadership role, the first lesson is that it's not about you. Tell us about that, please.
Yeah. Well, I have a really passion and strong belief in what leadership means. And one of my goals is to help as many people be the best leaders they can be. When I came up through the ranks, um, leadership was not what it is today. Leadership was, look, do your job. I pay you to do your job. I don't pay you to give me thoughts, right? If I wanted your ideas, I ask you for them, but I don't. I just pay you to do the job. And that's not leadership, right? My mentor was my boss at Harris Bank, because she saw something in me that nobody else did. My immediate boss, when I was at Harris Bank, was brutal to me, yelling at me all the time if I made a mistake, and literally to the point where I was like, I'm going to quit. This isn't working. And but the section boss saw something in me, and she pulled me away from that immediate boss and gave me somebody else as my boss, and I flourished, right? Because it's all sometimes about the right person and just encouragement. And so that
Mm,
boss, her name was Mary, and she was very encouraging to me. And then that eventually led me to wanting to do this job that we were doing manually and to start automating it. So I programmed how to do this stuff automatically, right? Again, because I was encouraged to do that.
mm,
And so as a leader, my boss, Wendy, at the time, Wendy Bailey, really made it so it wasn't about her. It was all about what do I need to do my job, right? And we would brainstorm ideas and all kinds of different things. But we automated that entire trust fee department. We would calculate all the fees, and it was incredible. It was an incredible time. But that was because she encouraged me and brought the best out of me by giving me the tools I needed to be successful,
mm,
right? And so what that taught me was it wasn't about her; it was more about the people, right? And so she would support me throughout the whole process. If we needed something and someone said no, she would go to him and go, "Look, he knows what he's doing. I need you to approve this." Right. And so that's the kind of stuff you need from leaders, right? And so when I say it's not about you, leadership to me is when if something goes wrong, you take the blame, because if you're the leader and something goes wrong, that means you didn't do your job well enough. And so you should take the blame. When something goes right, it's not about you. So you give the praise to your team, right? You say, no, look, I appreciate that, but my team helped me do this. Leadership is about be willing to stand shoulder to shoulder with your people and letting them know that you have their back and that whatever they need, you're going to try to do your best to get it. What I always tell leaders is ask your people what they need to do their job better. And as long as it's within reason, get it for them. Because then, A, you've now built their trust up and they believe, you're showing them that you believe in them. But B, as an employee, they now own it and
mm.
they're going to go to the extreme to make sure it's right. So that's where I kind of came up with this philosophy of it's not about you, because it shouldn't be about you. And the moment you make it about you is when you're not a good leader. I hate when bosses say, do this because I told you so or because I said so. Give them the why. I mean, we live in this four generational society now between boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, and Gen Zers. Boomers and Gen Xers, we'll do stuff because we were told to do it.
Yeah.
Millennials and definitely Gen Zers, they're going to be like, well, why? Why am I doing this? Right? How many times throughout the years did you hear somebody say, I don't know why I'm doing this. This is so stupid.
It just makes
But if
sense.
you would have told them why they did it and the because, all of a sudden they're like, oh, all right, I would have never thought of that. Okay, I get that. Yeah, sure, I can do that.
Yeah.
And now they're doing it at 100.
Yeah, I find it strange that it's still because I told you so. Like, I can't imagine, like, that's just, it feels so foreign to me, that sort of a form of leadership, right? Because I've always led for the people and actually say it's not about you. But for me, I love your thoughts on this. I also think it's about harnessing your people's strengths. So, I was always brought up in, focus on your weaknesses. What are your weaknesses? But weaknesses are like, for me, and I'm all about strengths and improvement, but not weaknesses, because like I'll use Excel for example as just as a basic example, but I'm not an Excel connoisseur. I'm not, and I never will be. It's just not something that actually intrinsically or motivates me. So why push me to do that? And I think that form of leadership where you're making somebody do something that does not, kind of enhance their strengths, it almost detracts them from their strengths. I think that's an old form style of leadership also. And I use that as an example because I think it's about improving on your strengths. How do you master those strengths? Putting the right team around and go, right, that person, Belinda's not great at Excel. She's tried, but she's really good at this. So let's get her focused in there. Let's bring Jeff in to do this bit. And that's when you
Yep,
get that really, high performing, engaging team versus pushing somebody to keep doing something that they just don't enjoy. And
that's right.
they just fundamentally, it's just not something that sets their world on fire, if that makes sense.
Totally. Well, I like to say you're putting the right person on the right seat on the bus,
Yeah.
right? Because you could be on the bus, but you could be in the wrong seat. My youngest daughter was this. She worked for a marketing PR firm that I was actually consulting for, and I brought her in, and they made her as like an administrator. And she's got a degree in interior design, and she's a designer. And so, as this administrator for all these clients, she was doing their social media. Well, pretty soon she got a reputation of we want Mary to do our social media because she's really good at it, right? And so pretty soon, probably within the first year and a half, they put her on the right seat in the bus, which was they now made her basically nothing leaves that office that she hasn't seen or looked at or been part of the
Mm.
design of it because she's so good at it. And she's
Yeah.
excelled from that point on, right? Because yeah, she was doing things she's like, God, I hate doing this stuff. Just let me design stuff. I'm really good at that.
Yeah,
But yeah,
exactly.
that's kind of what happens. But I think that's important.
Yeah. And what are you seeing as the biggest opportunities for leaders right now? Like you've talked around, obviously, it's not about you, but what are you seeing? Like, I mean, with four generations in the mix right now, as well as the world we're in, AI revolution, everything that's going on, we're probably in the most complex, distracted times we've ever seen. Like you just, yeah, like everyone is just, and we've got this fun little thing that is just like, attached to us.
Yeah.
What are you seeing as the biggest opportunities for leaders?
I, I think if I could throw a couple of stats out to you first, and then I'll kind of go into that. Um, One of the struggles that I have is that there's such a gap between good leadership. And I just finished my second book called The New Leadership Landscape, Redefining True Leadership. And so my goal with that book was to help people realize that leadership has changed, right? So
Yeah,
a couple of stats. Uh, 85% of all companies know that they need leadership development. Only 5% in the world are doing that.
yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
that's it. Wow. Right. And here's the cool part. If they did it, they get a 7x return for every dollar they spend on leadership development
Mm,
because they're more engaged. They're more willing to work the extra hours. They're more willing to do the job better. All these things happen from when you're teach people how to be leaders. And by the way, you don't have to be a boss to be a leader. You can be a leader with your peers. And that's just as important.
yeah.
You're working alongside somebody and they're struggling. As a leader, you walk up and you say, "Hey, what can I do to help you? I got a little few hours here. Can I help you do something?"
Mm,
Right? And so that's leadership as well.
mm,
The other stat that I always found very interesting is that when people move from one job to the other, and the Gen Zers are, and the millennials, excuse me, are major for this, is that they would move from one job to the other. 79% of them moved because they felt unappreciated.
mm.
Only 12% moved for more money, right? Which says it's not about the money, it's about this environment, it's about the
Yeah,
culture.
so true.
And right? You don't need to give them more money. Give them a gym membership, give them an extra day off, give something that has tangible value to them, and they're like, oh, this is great. Let them know that you appreciate them, by the way, once in a while. That's always great, and just kind of make the environment fun. But I think one of the things I'm noticing is that as a leader, we got to get better at listening and not interrupting when someone's talking to you. A and B, patience. So as a leader, we always want to make something happen now. And one of the toughest lessons I learned over the years was when I was in my 30s and 40s, if I wanted something now, I made it happen. I mean, I would push, make calls and whatever, right? No, this should be happening. No, this should be happening. Well, I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, the result was a disaster because I pushed.
Mm,
I learned to be patient and to let it play out. And all of a sudden it worked to my advantage because I let it play out. If I wanted someone to make a decision on something, I wanted to know it today versus give them a couple of days to go through it, and I'll probably get the decision I'm looking for.
yeah.
Right. And so that's a hard thing for people to do, to be a good listener, and to have patience, especially in the times we live in. You held up your phone before, right? Because we
Yeah.
live in this time where everything's coming at us at 200 miles an hour. And so how do we filter that all out, and how do we do things? And just it's too much. It's too much. And so sometimes we need to just take a step back. I love the fact that a lot, I don't know if they're doing it over in Australia, but a lot of the US schools are now prohibiting phones during school days. Like the students cannot have their phone at all. They walk
They're
into
meant
a
to be in their
classroom, they got to put their
lockers.
phone in a ball.
Yeah, I know my
Yeah.
nieces and my nephews, they're meant to be in their lockers. But yeah, yesterday I messaged two of them at 2:15 and I'm like, they're answering. And I nearly said, why are you answering your phone? But they'll probably, but actually, no,
Exactly.
what they say to me is they have iMessage on their computer. So then they message on my computer, but they're not allowed to use their phones. It's so true though, isn't it? Like, this ability to be patient. I know I've always been a bit of a pusher myself in terms of I think pushed myself, but then expectations of team as well and the people. And you have to take a step back and go, the more you effort, the more it just doesn't, it's not an advantage to how you're like what you're not getting there faster. You're actually getting there slower because all the roadblocks and everything that pops up for you along the way, I think is really important. What about in terms of, you talked a bit about distraction and you also talked about what you set up at Free Drive in terms of the environment, because I'm all about the environment also, and I think it's super important. And you had a room and you were doing things that were almost like well ahead of time in terms of allowing your programmers to have a space where they could basically somewhat actively recover in the office. And what I mean by active
Right.
recovery is, tuning out, just having a break, almost subtracting all from whatever they've been working on to get some fresh perspectives. Are you seeing more of that in businesses that you're working with or less these days? Like, are you seeing those sorts of things happening in the environments you're going into?
Not as much as I'd like. I'm a proponent of, you know, two thoughts. One is when COVID hit, we all had to work from home. Um, I ran into more people that were like, well, how do I know if they're actually working? Right. And so my question to them was, are they getting their job done? Well, yeah. Okay. Are they not delivering on things? No, no, they're delivering. Then what are we worried about?
Mm,
Right. And so, excuse me. So I think that's an important aspect of being able to kind of trust your employees and hopefully build them up. But if they're in the office, and this goes hand in hand because when you're home, you can check out for a little bit, right? You can go pick up your kids or you can go out to lunch or whatever. But if you're in the office, giving people a place to just, depending on the business, that they can just go unwind and just, without any explanation. Look, I need 15 minutes here right now. And I'm going to go into the playroom, let's call it, and just veg out for like 15 minutes. I don't see that as much as I'd like to see it because those are the little things that we were talking about when people feel unappreciated, where people
yeah,
will feel much more appreciated,
yeah,
right? Because you're giving that space. And that's all about trust, which is the hardest thing for me to get through to clients is they have to learn to trust their people. But it starts with them, right? And so what they have to do is they have to get their people to start trusting them, and then they can start trusting their people. Because again, the fish stinks from the head, right? So if you're not willing to offer trust, why are they going to trust you,
yeah.
right? So you're not going to trust them, and so then this is a vicious circle.
It's
But
yeah,
if we have that ability to just say, okay, as long as they're doing their job and they're meeting deadlines, and who cares? I mean, one of the things COVID taught us was some people work much better at night. I'm a morning person, 6 in the morning till like 2:30, and then my brain's toast. I mean, I can work, but I'm not very effective at all. Um, where I know people that they wouldn't start till like 3 in the afternoon and work till 10 at night, and they killed it.
yeah,
Well, what says we have to work 9 to 5?
yeah.
Work on the hours that we're all different, and whatever you're most productive at.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
look
one of the things I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I love that. I look at chronotypes, and so I'll get everyone to do the chronotype test, and then you understand are they a morning person, afternoon person, moderate person, and then how do you structure a team around different everybody's energy and the flow of the energy, and so like you say, no, 9 to 5 is non-existent. I've got well, I shouldn't say non-existent, but it's certainly evolving, right? I've got a couple last questions for you. Your book, New Leadership Landscape. You said something about redefining. I'm quite, my ears pricked up. I'm intrigued because I do think we're in this new world order of leadership, more so than ever. And I talk about presence, purpose, performance, and people. Like I feel like they're that you need all them, but then and presence, also patience. Having that patience is a big one because we're all in
Yep.
such a hurry. It's like it's a sprint at the moment, like more than a sprint. It's like Usain Bolt type running that we're doing. What are the
Right.
top three, I guess, chapters or pieces from your book that are informing this new leadership landscape?
Great question. I mean, it's I talk about 15 different topics within the book. And just so you know, the book was designed for two things. One is that we kind of go through and we talk about a topic, and all the topics. Here's the interesting part. I'm not introducing you to anything new that you don't know. What I'm
Yeah.
trying to get you to do is start applying what you do know in the right way.
Mm.
Okay. So building trust is one of the big ones,
Hmm.
right? And so we all want to build trust, but we don't go about doing it the right way. And so we talk about that. But then what I do is I offer real world stories and I talk about people in major corporations that have implemented certain aspects of this and how they've turned out and what's happened with them, right? And then at the end of the chapter, I always give them a pull the chute kind of worksheet, things to think about, things to do. Here's one of the things, and this is the problem: we all read a ton of books, we go to workshops. Until we start applying what we've learned, we're never going to change. We are who we are today because we were influenced by our parents, by our friends, previous bosses, you name it. Those are a lot of influences around us, and so we end up doing things that way because that's what they did, and that we don't know any
Yeah.
other way, right? But if we would just take that step back and say, okay, I need to rethink how I go about this. Emotional intelligence is the second big one chapter there, right? And I'll give you an example. I had a client, very emotional guy, would just blurt out to people when he was, about things that would piss him off, right? And then come back and apologize. It took me 6 months to get him to stop doing that. Now, the great part was when he caught himself, he finally texted me. He goes, "Hey, I finally paused." Because that's what I tell him: just pause.
How
If you're
good.
going to blurt out at somebody, think about pull the chute, right? Pause, take a breath, feel in control, so you're at and see where you want to go. And I always tell them, just figure out what you want ultimately at the end. If you're mad about something, then the first thing is it means you didn't do something right as the leader because they're screwed up, right? So if you're the leader, you got to fix that. So I finally got him to do that. Well, he calls me one time, and he was subletting his office out to a gentleman. He had a big office, and he was subletting part of it out. And they came to an agreement that they would share a biz dev person. So my client already had a biz dev person. This new guy moved in. He says, "Hey, can I use her? She's only being part time with my client. Can I use her for the other half?" He's like, "Oh, sure." So after about 6 months, he suddenly decides he's going to hire her full time. So she goes to my client and she says, "Hey, I'm going to go to work for John over there full time." And he's like livid. He calls me, and that's one of the things I love to do with my clients. Like if you're in a situation,
Call you.
call me or text me and say, "Do you have a minute?" Because the heat of the moment is where I can teach you the best, right? Because now what I want you to do is kind of learn in real life. And so he was spitting mad. He wanted this guy out of there. He was going to go in that back office and he was going to tell him what he thought of him. And he was going to, and I go, "No, you're not." I go, "You're going to end up in jail if you do that way." Because, you back somebody into a corner, they're going to come out fighting, right? Physically or mentally, whatever it is. No, you're not doing that. And I finally said to him, "What do you want?" He said, "I want him out of my office." I said, "Then tell him that." He goes, "You think that'll work?" I go, "Just tell him you want him out of the office." He calls me back 3 minutes later. He goes, "Well, that was easy." I go, "What happened?" He goes, "I walked back there and said, 'Hey, this isn't working. I need you out of the office.' The guy said, 'By when?' I said, 'By Friday.' He said, 'Done.' And I walked back to my office."
I love it.
But
That's so cool. It's so true though, isn't it? Like I've always been like get the monkey off your back and like you say sit on
yeah,
something, don't just respond, like react. Like, we're so used to
yeah,
reacting, reactivity and
yeah.
having that sense check. I feel like I need you on speed dial and like, hey Jeff, I've got this going on. What do you think? Because quite often, but I do it. I've got certain mentors that I'll ring now and go, I'm about to lose my effing shit or I'm going postal here.
Yep,
What do you think? And they're like, calm down, B, calm down. And I'm like, I know
yeah,
the lioness,
yeah.
the mane is up. Like, and then I'm just fine. Like I've had the conversation and I don't need to go back
So
and then, but then I guide people on that also where I'm like, have you thought about this or what do fascinating, fascinating. I really want to read your book. When is your book due? Is it published or is it out?
I self-published on Amazon right now. I haven't actually, and I did a pre-release because I was speaking at a conference, and so I wanted it available for the conference. So it is available on Amazon. You can search for it, the new leadership landscape, or search under Jeff Sesol, Sesol, and you'll see my books there. But I wanted to finish answering your question. Though the third thing that's important, by the way, and I know you're probably cutting down on time here, but communication.
Oh yeah.
We've got to be clear on our communication, right? Don't just say something and think that they understand it. Get their buy-in. So I had a real quick story. I had a client that wanted this girl to do a report by Friday. And she said, or he said, can you do this report? And she said, sure. Well, Friday came around and she didn't finish the report and he's all upset. And I said, well, tell me exactly what you said to her. He goes, I just said, can you do the report? And she said, yes. And I said, so you didn't define anything? Like, can you do the
By
report by
when?
Friday? When why is she doing the report? Because you want. So he went back and he said, look, Sydney, I really need this report by Friday at noon because I need time to look at it over the weekend before I present it on Monday. She's like, oh, sure, no problem. That's communication,
I
right?
agree. So true.
People
It's so
can't read
true.
our minds, right? We just got to be clear about what.
Yeah, no, sorry, keep going. Sorry. Yeah, keep going.
No, that's all right. I was just saying we just got to be clear, and they can't read your mind. And so if you
Yeah.
just throw something out there, and then the other thing is, can you do this? Get their buy-in. Yes, I can do it. Okay, great.
Yeah. I agree. And I also think that Jeff, to that point, it's awareness as well as a leader. Like for example, I've got someone that's working with me and he's amazing, he's great. And I asked him to do something, we went through it all, and I thought I was clear. And he said it was all clear. I said, please tell me. Sometimes I go too fast. I call out all my things that you need to kind of observe and what like just making sure that he like and ask make sure, no questions a bad question blah blah blah. Anyway, I realized it's the awareness as well because I went through some stuff late yesterday, and I saw and I went okay. He's seen this, but the reason he's seen it is because I haven't explained to him this. So I think quite often we'll go back and go, you got it wrong. You should have done it this way. You should
Yeah,
have just, whereas it's like, and I've done that in the past, like, when you're just frustrated, but it's actually, no, 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 Belinda, you didn't. And so I think it's having the ability as a leader to be what's the word I'm looking for? Well, it's awareness. It's awareness of, well, hang on a second, how is
yeah.
there a disconnect here? Do you know what I mean? I think that's part
Oh,
of
totally.
communication as well.
Well,
Like,
exactly. And I would encourage leaders, let's say you wanted it done by Friday. We're talking on Wednesday, my time, Thursday, your time, but check in halfway and go, hey, I'm just checking in the report. How's it going? Talk to me about where you're at.
yeah,
So you get a sense of if he's doing it the right way or she's doing it the right way.
yeah,
Right. And then sometimes I will even say, depending, again, I'm like you, I kind of tell people that actually ask them to do stuff, get their buy-in. And then I'll look at them and I'm not sure they quite understood. And I'll say, do me a favor, tell me what you think I'm looking for. I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
yeah,
And that will clear it up completely.
yeah, agree. Yeah. Last question, or kind of words of wisdom. What would be some words of wisdom or a piece of advice you would give a leader who currently had a bit of conflict and a bit of a disengaged team on the go right now?
So the first thing you need to do is build the team back up. So I would do some group team building. And I just was talking to a gentleman right before this show about that. And I said, look, start out by make sure your team knows each other. And so I have this book called 201, questions. And so you pick between 1 and 201, and I ask the question, you answer, right? And you go around the room and do that. So people kind of start to feel a little comfortable with each other, right? And then the second thing you do is if they start to know each other, the other thing I love to do is say, give us 3 things that nobody knows about you.
Yeah.
And the fun story for me on this one is that I used to do men's ministry at my church, and I used to do all the retreats, the men's retreats. And my dad went on one of the retreats one time, and we did this thing. It was like, tell us 3 things about you that no one else knows. Now, your name's not on the paper. I, as the MC, am kind of reading it, but at the end, someone has to raise their hand and say that was me. Okay. Well, the funny part was I read these 3 things, and it turned out to be my dad, and I had no clue.
Oh, how funny. How
And I'm
cute.
like, how could I not have known those 3 things
Yeah.
about you?
So funny, isn't it?
It was so crazy.
Yeah.
But what that does is that sets a tone, right? So if you have distrust, if you had miscommunications, things like that, let's start to build the team first,
Yeah.
right? And then the second thing I would say to them is make yourself available and start talking to your team instead of talking down to them. Talk with them, ask them their thoughts, ask them their opinions. Hey, we're going for this particular process. I see like we're only 60%, positive on when we do this process. What can we do to change that? And I need your input and get their input. What that does is it builds trust, because that's what's happening right now is that you don't have any trust,
No.
right? And they're pointing the finger at everybody. But if we can start building camaraderie, and if we can start offering people that ability to have input, you're building trust. And hopefully the other thing that you can do is when they offer some input, sometimes you say, kind of like that, but I'm not sure that's going to work because, and so they might go, oh, okay, I didn't realize that. It's not like you're just dismissing them, but tell them if something you don't think is going to work, tell them why you don't think it's going to work, and let them kind of rebuttal you, and
Yeah.
be open to that.
So
Don't
true.
shut people down.
Yeah.
But you got to build that camaraderie. And I think that'll change anything. Once if you have, kind of conflict going on and things, just take that step back and just, start getting to know the team again and getting them to understand each other and to work together and all that stuff. They got to start trusting each other. And that's
Yeah.
one of the things you can do.
Absolutely. Jeff, thank you so much. How do we find out more about you? How do we find out more about Pull the Chute?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate
Yeah.
it. So much fun for me. I love doing these. They're just a
Me
blast.
too.
My passion is really just to help people grow and be the best they can be.
Yeah.
And it's through shows like this that we get to do that. So,
100%.
pullthechute.net is the website. Go there, visit, schedule a discovery call. You can also go to jeffsesol.com if you want to know about me personally. I got some stuff up there. And finally, you can reach out through LinkedIn probably too if you want to do that. But I'm available all over the place. And check out the podcast. Pull the Chute is the podcast. We're on all the major Spotify, Apple, and then or go to the website. They're all there too. So there's
Love
some
it.
really amazing interviews that we've had, and some really good insight for people. So I'm
Yeah,
I'm,
I
I'm excited
agree.
about it.
Yeah, I've had quite a few as well, including yourself. It's like I think my book's coming out of this for me. Believe it or
Good.
not,
Yeah,
all
that's
the
good.
different stories. Jeff, thank you so much. It is about reshaping leadership for this new landscape, isn't it? And that's what I focus on
Yes.
also. And how do we lead from the inside out, like being interconnected to who we are, that mind, body, soul connection and the ability to
Yeah.
not only lead from the inside out, but from a business perspective and from a team perspective. I think it's critical. So wishing you a wonderful evening. I was about to say rest of the day, but it's not that for
Mhm.
you, it's for
Yeah.
me. It's time for me to wake my little puppy up who's sound asleep and go for our little walkies and get a coffee. But thank you, Jeff. I really appreciated the chat with you today. And yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I look forward to talking again. Thanks so
Yeah,
much.
me too. Thanks, Jeff. Take care.